Welcome to Fight News Now. I'm John Pollock with Robin Black joining me in a few minutes to go over today's news. We're going to be discussing a return to a familiar weight class for an original Ultimate Fighter. There's a high demand for dates at Madison Square Garden in April. Ronda Rousey is going to resurface later this month, and Bellator loses a big name for an upcoming event. The Bellator debut of Josh Koscheck has been delayed as Sherdog.com reported that Koscheck is out of his January 29th fight with Matt Secor at Bellator 148 in Fresno, California. The new main event will see Paul Daly take on Andrew Ulrich, which had already been announced for the card. Koscheck signed with Bellator in 2015 after 10 years with the UFC. From one Ultimate Fighter Season 1 fighter, we move on to the man that won the 185-pound contract in Season 1, Diego Sanchez. Sanchez recently stated that his next fight is going to be at 155 pounds after cutting down to 145 to meet Ricardo Lamas this past November in Monterrey, Mexico. Sanchez stated that the weight cut was just too much and he will return to the weight class where he challenged for the lightweight title back in December of 2009. Madison Square Garden is in heavy demand for April the 23rd. That's the date the UFC has put a hold on the venue in the event that professional mixed martial arts is legalized within the state and could stage the UFC's first card at the famous arena. However, Boxing Scene is reporting that K2 Promotions has also placed a hold on the venue for that very same date with Gennady Golovkin's mandatory IBF title defense coming up. Dave Schaller of the UFC commented to BloodyElbow.com and stated that the UFC has the first hold, and if they get the proper sanctioning, they would get the April 23rd date at the Garden. And finally, it was announced on Tuesday that former women's bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey will become the first mixed martial artist to ever host Saturday Night Live, and that will happen on January the 23rd in New York City. Rousey has kept a relatively low profile since her November loss to Holly Holm at UFC 193, but did conduct an interview with ESPN The Magazine after Thanksgiving last November. Coming up next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have a preview show counting down to the TJ Dillashaw-Dominic Cruz bantamweight title fight. The prelims are airing live here on Fight Network, and you can tune in Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for a full preview of that night's Fight Night card. I'm here with Robin Black. Obviously, huge news in the world of mixed martial arts. Ronda Rousey will be hosting Saturday Night Live, Robin, so I know what you will be doing January the 23rd.
I love Saturday Night Live. I love improv. My wife's a performer, so we watch it all the time. The thing, and it'll be cool to see Ronda on there and everything, but I don't know if this is the way I'd be going. So what is Ronda Rousey? Well, she was the most dominant female fighter in the world. She was also a superstar. Do you want to be a fucking fighter? That's a Dana Whiteism. Do you want to be the most dominant fighter in the world? Or do you want to be a superstar? What is it we're repairing here? Well, one way to be the most dominant fighter in the world is disappear completely, don't do any of this anymore, and don't do anything except go train, cancel your movies. I know that it's tough to cancel 8 or 10 or $15 million worth, but that's what it will take to be the greatest again. Or you can repair your celebrity identity, you can repair the way that people view you. I'll predict right now, in her opening thing, she'll go out and make some jokes about getting knocked out. That's the way you go out and tell the public, that's right, I'm still a star, I'm still someone you can love, I'm still gonna be a movie star, and I'm still gonna be famous. But that's not necessarily the way you go back and become the best fighter in the world.
So what you're saying is, by her putting all this thought into that opening monologue, it's not the right kind of stand-up she's working on.
That's not bad, Pollock. I'm going to give you that one.
SNL, I'm always available here as a writer. Come on.
This guy's there as a writer, performer, whatever you need. Hey, that's just it. I mean, why did she lose her title? She got kicked in the head. But why else did she lose her title? Well, if you look at the evidence leading up to it, she was not in the shape that she should have been in, or could have been in, or has been in. She was not in the mental state, that dominant mental state she had been in every other fight, and she had some self-doubts. What are some of the things that can cause that? Being stretched way too thin, being worried about protecting the way people view you, worried about protecting all of those other things that when you become a champion, you got to protect your image, you got to protect all that stuff. But Ronda had even more. Fame and fortune and being a movie star and all that stuff. She felt the need to protect that and work on that, and in doing so, didn't develop as a fighter. You can't judge something because somebody wants to go and do a Saturday Night Live. I mean, who wouldn't? Hey, I'd love to do it. Pollock would love to do it. Way behind camera 3 would love to do it. But, hey, listen, at the same time, what's the priority?
That's it. I think she's at a level, Robin, where that's one priority, and she's been spread so thin that the ability, 98% of fighters, they suffer a loss like that, they can tune off the world and release all commitments. Ronda's got movies she's got to film that you just can't say, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. She's committed to all of this. And that's why I believe that I don't think she is going to be Holly Holm's next opponent. I don't know if she will even be available for UFC 200. And part of me hopes she doesn't. I hope she takes that extra time. Maybe we don't see her till the end of this year. Maybe it's a year from now she fights at this point. I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world at all for Ronda to take 9 months off, take 12 months off, and we see a reinvented Ronda Rousey, if she wants that.
That's right. It's her life, man. I'm a fan of Ronda Rousey, the fighter, and I'm a fan of Ronda Rousey, the performer. I got a painting over my television by a print of a Justin Bua painting of Ronda Rousey doing an armbar in my living room. I'm a huge fan of this woman. You don't have to be a fighter. You can beat the Bethe Correias of the world with 1 foot in fighting and 1 foot in being a celebrity. You can, but you ain't going to beat Holly Holm that way. So what I would have done, and I'm just a guy who talks on TV, but if I had the opportunity, if I was a close friend, you know, in the week after or the 2 weeks after, you sit down and say, what do we want to do? Do we want to be the most dominant fighter in the world? Or do we want to manage your celebrity, be a star, be Ronda Rousey forever, make a ton of money, host things, and have your own television shows and have fragrance lines and stuff? Because we can't do both. So if we want to do the one, let's just move out of fighting. Let's talk about fighting for a year. Let's phase out the way Gina Carano did. And let's be remembered as one of the greatest female fighters and innovators, someone who changed fighting forever. Or let's literally lose millions of dollars and not just saying no to movies, but there's out clauses in contracts that say you'll owe us if you leave. Let's lose it. That's what it'll take. If Chris Weidman was in this situation, Chris Weidman's so desperate to be the champion again, Chris Weidman would walk away from everything else. You'd never hear from him again till he stepped in that cage. Ronda, go do what you want to do, but Saturday Night Live does not lead you to winning the UFC Bantamweight Women's title.
We mentioned in the headlines the fact that Diego Sanchez, his next fight, he's going to fight at 155 pounds. We talked to him just days before that fight with Ricardo Lamas, and he was, certainly feeling, I'm going to make this weight. But that was a drastic cut for a guy that fought on the reality show at 185 pounds and then spent his career at 170, 155. I was stunned when he came down to 145. But an interesting experiment that is out there is what One Championship is proposing with this idea to try and eradicate weight cutting, to get guys to fight at their walk-around weights, which sounds extremely ambitious. They feel they'll be able to monitor these weights, and if they can get everyone on board, you're essentially fighting all the same guys, just at a higher weight class. And in theory, how many fighters have we talked to, Robin, it's the dream that they could do this and just not have to worry about weight cutting, but something that's never been realistic. I'm very curious to see if this works, and I'm glad a promotion, they're at least trying something, even if it's going to be, it's hard to fathom it will really eradicate weight cutting.
Yeah, it will not work, but you love that they're trying it. You love that they're seeking answers. You love that they're looking for improvements, ways to protect the fighters, ways to protect the health. But the fundamental flaw of weight cutting or weight management or weight monitoring is people find ways to cheat it. The weight classes existed so that we'd weigh you, that's what you weigh, and that's what you fight. Then we started doing it the day before, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, if I don't eat breakfast, I can be a little bigger. Hey, if I run a lot and sit in a sauna, I can be a lot bigger. And then once someone does it, then everyone has to do it. Whatever cheats and workarounds will be found to exist in the new system will be used, and then they'll become normal. It's unfortunate, and I don't mean to be defeatist, but the human nature is to find an advantage. And I don't know if more legislation and more testing and more monitoring will do it, but I'm certainly glad they're going to try it. It will not eradicate it, but maybe it will make it better.
I think it's a culture change, which is not something that you just legislate a rule and everyone subscribes to it. Because, fighters, change is not welcome. Ben Askren recently said, sometimes fighters, they don't even realize, they fight change even though it's good change. This would be across the board. No fighter is pushing for, I love weight cutting. That's really a part of the job I enjoy. Everyone would love to fight at their walk-around weight. And it's just the idea that my opponent is somehow going to game the system so that I'm at a disadvantage. Because if I'm not cutting weight, I don't have that edge. That it's a mental thing as much as a physical one.
It is, and the worry is that if you're doing it, I got to do it. Okay, you're not doing it? Well, what if he's doing it? I better do it. And you're like, well, he's not doing it, but if he thinks I'm doing it, then I better do it. And it just becomes like that. It's a perpetuating thing. And it may always be, and changing a culture is very difficult. You know, we live in Canada. We're right next to America. We're basically their friend. But you go ask somebody in Europe about gun culture or things like that in America, where we're used to, they think it's crazy because culture isn't understood by other cultures a lot. So it's just one of those things. It's just not, you know, it's cool that they're trying something. And whatever they try, you hope that it makes small improvements, and little improvements over time make big improvements.
You always get a lesson in sociology from this man, Robin Black. We have more Fight News Now coming up. Stay tuned.